Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Bound by Grace podcast. I'm Amber Hunt. I have Josh Davidson with us and Jaylen Thompson. They actually run another podcast with one another. They have Faith Unaltered and the Cosmic Corner, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? So we're going to be talking about trust in relationships and marriages. So Josh, why don't you start us off on the route we want to go?
First, thanks for having us on. I appreciate it. I had been on before, so I don't know if your audience would remember me, but just for a quick intro, my name's Josh Davidson. I'm one of the founders of the Faith Unaltered channel on YouTube, and I co-host the Cosmic Corner. And I have been a believer, grew up in the church, so I have a long backdrop of experience with the church, and I also have a diverse background of influences from different traditions and a lot of reading from the early church and the church fathers and church history as well as just a wide swath of interests and influences in that way. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. Non-denominational guy, but if I'm honest, is more of a liturgical leaning kind of affinity. I really have a high desire to honor the Lord, and I find that reverence to be beautiful. I think that truth, goodness, and beauty are things that are meant to be emphasized in the church, and so those are things that are a big deal to me. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know if Jaylen wants to introduce himself real quick before we hop into the topic necessarily, but I want to kind of give you an opportunity.
Yeah, sure. My name is Jaylen Thompson. I am a co-host with Josh on the Cosmic Corner on the Faith Unaltered YouTube channel. Been podcasting for a couple of years now. I have an Christian apologetics podcast called the Identity Crisis Podcast that's still on YouTube. I don't record for that channel much, but the content is still there. It's lots of videos that people can feel free to check out. It's basic apologetics 101, how to defend the faith and give answers. But there's an emphasis on doing so with gentleness and respect, just in a way that honors Christ and not just for the sake of providing the right information. Now I co-host a podcast with Josh on Cosmic Corner where we dive into all types of neat, cool, and fun and bottomless pit discussions where we explore a bunch of different biblical and theological concepts found throughout Scripture. And it's fantastic. Been in church all my life as well. I'm also married, so I'm kind of familiar with this whole trust idea. Been married for about 8 years, so I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Amber, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this episode. I think you guys are going to bring us some really good insight. Both of you have been married, and your marriages, from what I know, are going very well. And it's great to have, honestly, men come forward to want to talk on these subjects, because we don't have enough men to step forward to give insight from a Christian perspective, especially for marriage. They're just, I don't know what it is. They are closed off and almost shy about subjects like this. So it's nice having, especially two men, step forward and say, yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm excited that you guys can bring that perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jaylen. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about it. Like you said, it's a unique topic to men when you say words like trust, but it's necessary that we talk about it. And the only way to do it is to do it, as far as I'm concerned. So it's kind of like, here I am, Lord, send me, and I'll stumble, I'll trip and fall and stumble along the way, but I'll go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, one of the things I didn't mention when I was introducing myself is that I also am a father and a husband. That's deeply relevant to the conversation here, obviously, because if we're talking about trust, one of the things that is the paramount of any life is relationship. And that's one of the things that's going to be not only a deep source of satisfaction and meaning in your life, it's also going to be the thing that sustains most of the ongoing patches where you don't have things that are going well, where you don't have meaningful ventures, where you don't have success, where you don't see increase and growth in your life. And what is it that you're going to fall back on when you don't have those externals. What you're going to have is something that helps to reach the internal. And that's really what relationships are good for. And the only way that I'm going to have anybody reach the inside of me beyond a knife is that I allow them entry. And that's exactly the touchstone of where the rubber meets the road between why I need to be trusting and why I need to be trustworthy. And those are two distinct things. We'll kind of play around with those two things, I think, a little bit. But just as kind of an easy opening, when we think about the word trust, the first thing that we think of, obviously, is the strength of our feeling of reliability for something or someone, right?
Sure.
I can say, I trust my friend to go and do this thing for me, and then whatever it is that I'm saying about them, what I mean by that is my expectation will be met by them, and they won't be a disappointment, betrayal, or violation to that expectation. That's kind of the most direct thing that I think we could mean when we say I trust something or someone, is we think my expectations have grown comfortable relying on them or in them. That's probably the best way that I've seen to kind of explain what I would mean by trust. Is there anything you kind of add to that, Jaylen?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying about trust. I would add to it that one, we as human beings were created for relationship, right? Like you said, Josh, relationship is paramount to the human experience. And it's almost impossible to separate the human experience from relationships. Honestly, I don't think you can. I just, yeah, you can't. And one of the pillars that all relationships live and perhaps die on is trust, right? And due to the fact that we were created for relationship, I think we were also created for trust and for trusting and trustworthiness, like you brought up, Josh. It is an inescapable part of our experience. If you are going to live a life worth living, right? Is in order to do so, you're going to have to trust, and you're also going to have to be able to be trusted, right? Mm-hmm. And someone's gonna have to meet you in the middle of the road as it relates to that type of relationship dynamic. And I also recognize too that there are levels to trust as well. Like trust is not some kind of monolithic, one size fits all, just add water type of concept, right? There are levels to it. There's, in marriage, I would say there's kind of the general trust of like, hey, don't cheat on me, right? Like, okay, that's kind of what you said you do at the altar, right? Like, duh. But then there's more trust, like, hey, here's my heart, right? And here are my dreams and fears that I held inside and I've reserved for you. That's different than cheating or adultery or that type of faithfulness. That's a totally different concept. It's a totally different conversation. Here are the things that scare me. Here are my insecurities, right? That's a different level of trust, right? And I would just add that to say that there are different depths to trust that require that are more risky, but also more rewarding as well when two people engage it properly.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to share some statistics about trust. I think people would be interested to know 84, and this is in marriage, 84% of married adults say they have a great deal of trust in their spouse to be faithful. 74% trust their spouse to act in their best interest. To me, that's pretty low. 68% trust their spouse to always tell the truth. 56% trust their spouse to handle money responsibly. So money is a big trust issue in marriage as well. In contrast, cohabitating adults, so those that are not married but still living together, report significantly lower levels of trust in all these areas. So I wanted to share that. And 65% of divorces are attributed to communication breakdowns, which often stem from lack of trust.
Yeah. That might sound dismal to people. Hearing things like that, it might be shocking. But if you have any experience in relationships, it shouldn't be shocking to you that as you learn who someone is, you find them to be less than perfect. That actually shouldn't be astonishing to us. This is something that I call Tinkerbell syndrome. I have a friend who is a rather good-looking chap and doesn't have a hard time getting attention from the ladies. And when he does get attention, he often has this problem where he'll find somebody who's brand new and he recognizes all the infinite potential of their new personhood and everything and goes, oh, they're just everything that I want and more, packaged so perfectly in this thing that I think is just beautiful. And it's like, yes, that's exactly right. That's where the beauty and the infatuation allow themselves to give you those moments where men, even though we're not smart enough to do so consciously, subconsciously, when we find something that we fall in love with in that way, and that's what you're doing, is you're kind of stumbling into the thing. We often buffer that stumbling with a series of promises of fidelity, right? Like we would promise to this woman, oh, I'll be just for you, and I'll wait for you, and I promise myself to you, and I'll take care of you and your children, and you're just so infatuated, and it's beautiful, right? But then the Tinkerbell phase starts to fade, and you begin to learn that the person that you're with is actually a person and not an idea. And all of the shortcomings and all of the ugly parts begin to slowly expose themselves through your moments of intimate acquaintance, and you begin to learn who and what this person actually is, rather than just the infatuation that you've kind of tagged them with. You clothe them with all of your wonder.
Yeah, Josh, I think we call that seeing someone through rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like
I call it the honeymoon
they're not a
phase.
real girl yet.
Yeah, the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, and it hasn't become they haven't become a real girl yet, right? So they're Tinkerbell, they're not yet Wendy, right? They're still this thing. They're just a fairy. They're just everything that you want, right? But they're not real yet, right? And then that's where things like trusting ends up becoming such an important thing to be able to establish even that early on, right? Is that this person is allowing you to see those things. They're allowing you to experience their shortcomings. They're allowing you to see them in a way that is genuine and authentic, and they're exposing them. They're doing so either naively or with experience out of bravery. They're allowing you to see those parts of them that they need to know that you're not going to run away from. Because that's what the marriage promise actually amounts to, is I'm going to show you all the parts of me that no one else gets to see, and you won't run away from me. You promise?
Yeah.
And I won't run away from you. I promise. And that's what we mean. That's actually what that is. And if you can't establish that desire with someone not to run away with them, then that you haven't established that you're worthy of the trust of them opening that piece of them, right? You have to be able to extend yourself as much as you allow that person to extend themselves. And so a lot of the time, women explain this in their experience by saying that he makes me feel safe, right? Yes, beautiful. He makes me feel safe. The shortcoming of that is that when you feel safe and you let your guard down, you become vulnerable. Women know very quickly when they've been violated and they've been burned, and they have that experience where somebody has misused that experience, that intimacy, that vulnerability. Men also know this experience of somebody who's misused that deep vulnerability. But like Jaylen said, there are levels to this. And oftentimes it's because we're front loading all the best of our affections and expectations in the very beginning of a relationship with a person who hasn't quite exposed themselves to us yet. And we build an expectation on the Tinkerbell phase rather than on the actual experience of the real person. And then when they begin to expose themselves later on, we feel that it's a violation. We feel they're actually wronging us by exposing themselves and being who they are. Right. And so it's very, very costly not to trust well and not to be trustworthy. Right. It's very, very costly. Yeah. And so one of the things that we can kind of recognize, I think, is like Jaylen said, there's kind of tiers to your trust, right? In the same way that, like, when I walk out on the street and I see somebody that I don't know, I can kind of, by their body language and maybe how they carry themselves and their facial expression, see whether or not they're able to play the social game with me. That makes me feel whether, like, I can walk by them and ignore them. Because really, with a stranger, the best trust you have is to be able to ignore them. As irrelevant as possible as they can be, that means that they're not erratic and not untrustworthy. And if they were, you would give them your attention. And so that's a level of trust that you can kind of see as an interplay between you and even a stranger, is you can recognize when somebody acts erratically and they're moving strange, they can't keep their balance. Maybe they're talking to the floor, or they're touching their face a lot, or they can't keep a straight face. They can't keep their eyes focused on something. You're going to walk around that person. You're going to give them their space. And it's because you can't tell whether or not they're ready to play the social game with you. You can't trust them. And you know that. In here, you don't know that. In here, you definitely know that. Here, you definitely know that. But this is a little slow. And so there's a lot of these things that go under the radar. And so marriage is a very unique place for trust to operate, because it allows for all of those pieces to become explicit. We want to communicate these things. We want to express. You know, when you use that body language, it makes me feel threatened, or it makes me feel less respected, or it makes me feel smaller in the room. It makes me feel unheard when this happens. And so being able to express those pieces actually builds for you a future that's worth reaching, because you don't have 1,000 unfought wars in the rafters of your house. You know, like, you can't hide those pieces forever. You have to be able to give them the space to exist, right? And so in the same way that you would have 1,000 unfought wars around your house, it's because you don't trust each other with the honesty that it would take to confront the problem. And so you choose long-term conflict over short-term conflict, right? Like, that's something that's going to always drag on.
I was going to say that we would also refer to that as sweeping things under the rug, or kicking the can down the road, right? Where I'm fully aware of a deeper conversation that should be had right now, because sometimes that's what we're really fighting about, right? Is that we're not fighting about the fact that I forgot to take out the trash. We're fighting about the fact that I'm inconsiderate. Two totally different things. Right.
Or I feel like I wasn't heard and respected when I asked that of you.
Exactly. Right. And so a lot of times we'll just kind of just deal with the surface level. Okay, I'll take the trash out. God, okay, fine. I'll get up and take the garbage out. It's like, no, that's sure. Take the garbage out. But the bigger issues, like you said, I don't feel like you respect me enough to, when I ask you to do things, to make sure that they get done.
Yeah.
In that conversation, you don't get to walk around that one, right? The only way to that conversation is through it, or you kick that can down the road and cause a lot more damage along the way. And then when we get to the conversation again, more damage has been done, and now the molehill is an even bigger mountain, right? Because now not only are we addressing that, we're addressing the fact that we kicked the can down the road. So I don't feel hurt even more, because I tried to bring it to your attention and you wouldn't listen to me, and all of these different types of things that take place, right? So yeah, great point, Josh. Great point.
What do you think, Jaylen, is the tiers? Do you have names for those tiers, or explanation of the tiers of trust?
Oh, geez, I don't. But kind of what I gave earlier were like the kind of general trust in the context of marriages, talk marriages. Kind of a surface level trust in marriage to me is fidelity, right? In a very pragmatic way. Don't have sex with someone that you're not married to, right? Reserve that for your spouse. Okay, simple enough. Although people have a hard time with it. It is simple enough, right? But then, like I said, there's another level of trust where, like, there's like, here are my vulnerability, right? Here's my hopes, my dreams, my insecurities. Here are things that scare me. Here are things here's what I want to be when I grow up, right? Here's what here all of these different types of things that you share with the person. Here's some things that people have said to me in my past that have hurt my feelings. one time my mother and I had this conversation, and she said this, and it bothers me to this day. Those types of things, right? That get exposed, and that's a different level of trust, right? Then there is money, right? You have some people who come home and they'll hand their whole paycheck to their spouse. Do as you will. I'm out. That's a different level of trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the raising of children, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different level of trust that comes into play there because now this relationship has grown from just you and I to now it's bigger than you and I, right? It's bigger than what we want to do and how we feel in any given moment. Now it's about raising other human beings. Well, how are we going to do that? There's a million questions there's a million conversations we got to have here. And I have to be able to trust you in very pragmatic ways as it relates to this whole child rearing experience, right? Can I trust you to get the kids to school on time? Can I trust you to bathe them and cook for them? Can I trust you in terms of the type of character and the type of person that they're going to be? What are we going to teach them?
Mm-hmm.
Those types of conversations. So those are some of the levels that I was referencing when I brought up the idea that trust has levels to it and different depths.
I think another level of trust, at least from a woman's perspective, would be, is he still going to be there and love me deeply as my body changes? As I grow older,
okay.
Is he still going to want to be there? Or what if I get sick? Is he going to want to walk through this with me? Because I saw a video that said that 2.78% of women leave the relationship if the man is terminally ill.
Okay.
However, on the flip side, 26% or something like that of men will leave the relationship if the woman is terminally ill. So that percentage is much, much higher in men. So it is a real fear.
Yeah. Just the idea of life happening, right? Because that's all that is. That's just life happening, right?
That's just life.
The changing of the body, the sicknesses, things that when it's funny because when you're at the altar, right? And you're going through your vows, you're saying a bunch of things that you really don't know what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Not yet.
Not yet. You will.
Right. And that's exactly what I'm getting at is when you're at the altar there, you're saying all of these things for better, for worse, sickness and health, richer for poor, all of these things, right? And none of these words have substance to them by way of experience that would change the way you said them if you knew what they meant.
Yes.
But you say them anyway on the front end, right? And you go all in, and then life happens. The poor comes in, the sickness comes in, the worst comes in, right? And all of these things start taking place. And it's like when I was up there at the altar, I know I said for richer, for poor, but I really meant richer, right? I know I said for sickness and health. I really meant health, though. That's what I meant. I know I said for better, for worse, but I really meant for better. And you see that come out in the person's actions when the adversity comes up, right? Like you said, when women get sick, 26% of men leave. Well, what is that hearkening to? That's hearkening to back when I made these commitments to you. I know what I said at the altar, but here's what I actually meant.
Yeah, I had this one lady that I had an episode with about her divorce, and she said that she was dealing with cancer. She was going through chemo and everything like that. She had a few kids. She comes home one day and her husband literally had his backpack on, sitting, waiting for her. And out of nowhere just said, "This isn't fun anymore." And left.
Yeah. It's not fun anymore. However, once again, there's what you said at the altar and what you meant. And it sounds like to me what he meant was, I'll stick around so long as I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
The minute I'm no longer having fun, I'm packing up and I'm out. Unfortunately, feel so terrible for that woman that had that experience. I mean, cancer in and of itself is a terrible experience, but then to have someone that told you they would be there for this kind of stuff walk out, during that experience is horrible. But that's what happens a lot of times, I think, at the altar, is the words are empty because they're devoid of experience. But Josh, what do you think?
I think these are perfect examples of exactly what I was talking about before, of the costliness of trust. What it is that we mean by trusting, and why trust is actually not just a spiritual principle or some sort of idea that's floating out there in the ether. It's actually the currency that heaven is made of when you experience heavenly moments. It's actually those things. That's what trust affords you, is that experience of the very good, right? When things are lining up together properly, right? That's something you can't fabricate it properly for very long. It'll snap like a violin string. It doesn't last forever.
Right.
Real trust and real trustworthiness is something that you cannot buy. It is of itself its own currency, and it affords you everything. That's actually what trust is. And trust broken is not impossible to repair, but I think it is in some sense impossible to make infantile again.
Yes.
Right? You are never going to be in a position after you're burned to have no burn scars on your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Your scars don't go away. The carvings, the markings, and the scars remain. But that doesn't mean the structure can't be rebuilt. Right? This is something of real.
It doesn't mean that you can't. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the benefits of it again. Right? Like you said, now you just enjoy them with scars, as opposed to when you were kind of enjoying them with a type of ignorant bliss of sorts, as it relates to the being burned part, right? Because oftentimes what happens when we get burned by trust is we make statements like, I'll never trust again, right? Okay, it's like, all right, cool. A lot of times those statements are made out of emotion, where you're not really counting all the costs of what it means to not trust again. Because also what you just said is, I'm no longer going to experience being human again.
Right.
And I don't think you meant that. I don't think you meant that. Right. And so that's one of the kind of the conundrums of trust is when you get burned, the idea of doing it again is it's almost like a risk analysis, right? Like, okay, I can close myself off in my bunker here and be a hermit and never get hurt again, right? But I'll also never experience love again if I don't trust, right? I'll never get to experience the joys of relationship again if I don't trust. The laughter, the substance of relationship, I'll never get that again if I don't trust. So sure, I'm safe in my bunker. It's just me. I'm safe, but I'm also lonely,
right?
Likely miserable, right?
Yeah.
I'm devoid of human touch and human experience. So I can almost say, like, I'm not human.
Yeah. Withering on the vine.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something also going back a little bit to your idea of having tiers or levels of intimacy and trust, right? Not that intimacy and trust are identical, because you can trust somebody without ever sharing intimacy with them.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But there are levels and tiers that amount to what we mean by intimacy, if that makes sense. That's kind of like that's the innermost ring of what we mean by those tiers, I think. And that's kind of what Jaylen was getting at, was fidelity. I would say that's also equally intimacy, is that sharing of the most private space, right? And the way that I think about this is you can use a couple of different models. One of them that's the most intuitive, I think, is thinking about it the same way you would think about your home. The sidewalk in front of your home is public. Anybody can go there, even if they bother you. That's public. It's where you put the trash cans, right?
Yep.
Like, then there's something else. There's your front gate. Maybe you have a front yard. Maybe there's a patch of grass and some stuff that belongs to you. And if strangers are there, you're alarmed by them. not necessarily threatened unless they're acting a threat, but you're aware of their presence because you didn't invite them. That's beginning to be a step in on your trusting zone, let's say.
Sure.
And that's where people that are acquaintances, the people you just met, if you invite them in, they're welcome in that space. That's where they belong. That's fine. And then you have a little bit more intimacy. You have somebody that's perhaps a friend. They're on the porch. They're right there next to the front door, right where your entrance is, right where the intimacy genuinely begins.
They can see inside, Josh.
Exactly. They can see inside. There's something, you're giving them that privilege of they're approaching, right? That approach is something very real and very substantive. And you see it in the differences in your relationships. And then you have the inside of the house. And that's where your hospitality is genuinely living. That's where you sit down and you share a meal. That's where you have somebody sit on your couch. That's where you have Bible studies at your front table, or whatever it is that you do in the intimacy of your own home, in that relatively private / public space. That's about where the line begins to work. And then you have two rooms that really represent that intimate space. One being the bedroom, the other being the bathroom. One is deeply personal. The other is deeply relational. The bathroom is not a relationship space. It is a personal space. The relationship space is the bedroom. The bedroom is a very deeply personal space. Usually it is the most private space because of the way we design our homes, and we're intuitively aware of this. We put it at the back of the house. It's away from the front of the house where all of the public sharing is. It's away from there. We know better. That's why we design homes this way. It's actually a physical representation of this exact same premise. And the only people that go in that bedroom are people that are firmly invited. And when they're invited, it better be ordinately invitation, right? And that means that there is a very, very, very short list of acceptable invitations.
Yep.
So I like the way you guys are going with this. I like the visual representation. I like that you, Jaylen, brought up tiers itself. So I just did a quick Google search, and I think that this will help people as well. Think on what kind of trust should they have with their spouse? And it just so happens to be tiers. So we have the foundational trust, shared values. So it's built on mutual beliefs and moral alignment. So this can be acquaintances. This can be work buddies. You have those values that are pretty similar. And then we have integrity, basically living what you preach. So you're trusting that someone's actions are going to match up with their words. So I would say this is more friendship related. You're not going to have an acquaintance that you always expect that to happen, because you get let down a lot by acquaintances by expecting that. But friends, these are the ones you want to have as friends. And then we have emotional safety. So concern for each other. So this would be deeper friendship and then relationship. So feeling safe to be vulnerable without fear of judgment. Trust grows when both partners show empathy and care for what we're stating. Then there's competence, capability, and reliability. So it's trusting your partner to handle responsibilities well, which Jaylen brought up. And then the last tier was accountability. So follow through and dependability. It's the highest tier. Consistent reliability over time. So this particular tier doesn't happen just because they're your spouse. It's one that's built over time.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because I was actually getting ready to kind of go into that, where you see this in marriage, right? My wife views year 8 Jaylen totally differently than she views year 1 Jaylen.
Same. I view my 7-year husband way different than year 1.
Two totally different guys.
Thank God.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Yes.
I did her a favor. I did her a favor by growing up. But yeah, no, she views me totally different, and the reason for the difference is that last tier of trust that you talked about. It's what I've earned, right, over time. And how have I earned it? Well, I earned it by a lot of unsexy words like consistency,
yes,
integrity, right,
yes,
discipline, right?
Responsibility,
reliability,
accountability,
boundaries,
respecting boundaries,
humility, all of these unattractive words, right? Apologizing, right? All of these words, faithfulness, all of these words that are so unattractive, they're
unattractive to you men. They're sexy as hell to us.
well, listen, and even in that though, those words are far sexier now than they were in the beginning to you.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Like it's in the beginning, you almost didn't have these words. It was like, I want him to do what he said he would do, but like you didn't necessarily have the word for that.
Right.
Right. But now that you have the word for that and he's doing it, it's like, oh man, this is the man of my dreams. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's interesting that like trust in and of itself, like it takes on a life of its own in the course of a marriage. Right. And that life is oftentimes directly correlated to the overall health condition of the relationship.
Which is directly tied to spiritual health, mind you. And this all comes back to the fact that the actual source of our ability, not only for fidelity, but also for trusting, is actually that we're a person. We're not merely an animal, right? We have the higher function of being able to see the future before it gets here, and it freaks us out. In the future that I envision, I want to be one in which my wife accompanies me. That's deeply meaningful. That's one in which she can actually take comfort in the fact that that's how I envision the future. It gives her the ability to make an expectation that I'm going to honor that desire, because it's not one that she set for me. It's one that I have set for myself. I desire that. And that's what Jaylen's talking about. He wants his wife, and she's like, I am so much happier now to be wanted. I thought I was cool with being wanted before, but now I know what that means. And now that I know what that means, and I've lived that out for a while, I can't do without this. This is as good as air. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's like when you finally get to a place in your marriage where you guys are able to see each other that way. And it's not every facet of the person that you're like, I hope they keep that forever. You know what I mean? Like, no, there are things that you see in the person and go, I hope that I'm strong enough to be the thing that chips that off of you, because there's something beautiful waiting right underneath that. And I know that it hurts because I can see it on you, and I'm the one closest to you to feel the pain. I know that it hurts, but I'm big enough and I'm willing to be the thing that wave crashes against until something gives, because I see you. I see you, and that's what matters. You know what I mean? Like, I want that thing, whatever that is, that's under the surface of that. I'll endure the pain. I'll receive that. That's what men do in that space. Women are like an intimate space. They're like the bedroom, right?
Yes.
We want to be allowed in.
Yes.
Right. But women also see us as like the bedroom. We're the space. We're the structure. We're the firm thing, the protective walls. We're the army that keeps the thing safe on the inside, so the queen can sit on a throne and not be a poor person begging outside.
Yeah, and not even just that, Josh. She can sit on the throne and let her hair down. She can be herself.
Exactly.
Right. That's what men create. We create the environment where she can not just, sit on the throne and claim dominion, but she can be herself. Right. Sometimes, oftentimes, women put on a face in the workplace, right? And we all do, right? In certain capacities, women put on faces in the workplace, got to put on a face with the kids. But, and I've noticed this even with my wife, is that, the way she behaves outside the home and the way she behaves at home, it's the same person, but different. And what's different is the fact that I'm there, right? That the structure is there. And so it almost allows her, like, okay, I could take the guards off now. I take all this stuff off. I take all this equipment, all the helmets and the guard, and I take all that stuff off. I'm at home and I can just relax and just be whatever that means for me in this particular moment, because I'm safe.
That's right. And that's what it is. Women want to be safe, and men want peace. And that's the thing, that a lot of guys have been tricked into thinking that women want a danger. No, they want excitement. They don't want danger. They want just enough danger, but they need something to buffer it. The guy has to be safety. The world's dangerous enough. And girls think that guys want a challenge. No, the world's hard enough and we're dealing with it. We want you to be the thing we come home to be home.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest rules at my house. I am not home until I have hugged and kissed my wife. And she knows that. And if it's been more than 15, 20 minutes since I've been in the building and I'm not home yet, I'm making it known. I'm not home yet, lady. Get over here.
Right.
I need to be home now. My day is over. I'm done with the world. I need to be home, and you're home. You know what I mean? Like that needs to be something that I maintain, right? That needs to be something she maintains. That's not something that happens on its own organically forever. Again, that's something that happens in that Tinkerbell honeymoon stage because it wants to. You still are in that place where it's natural and easy to move forward toward your desired end, which is in fact the bare bones of affection and being wanted, right? But when those things become challenged because life gets in the way and you see the effort and the desire put forth by this other person to honor that same level of commitment, even when things are that much more difficult, you know what I mean? Because it's different. Like I can walk up the stairs up and down. I have 19 stairs in front of my house. I can walk up those stairs probably 40 times before my legs actually get tired enough I need to sit down. If I'm carrying groceries, probably 10 trips because I'm carrying a lot of groceries at once. I'm one of those guys. I'm going to load up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah, try to get them all out in one trip.
I learned it in church when I was carrying chairs for girls in youth group. It's a thing we do, you know, like we got to, anyway, I load up on groceries and I'm going up. I am not expecting my wife to load up groceries. If I see her loading up, I will take at least one arm of groceries off her as not as a rebuke, but as a rebuke. I'm your husband. Stop it. You know what I mean?
Josh, it's funny. I'm the same way. Like with my wife, like if like we're at home or something, like even groceries, right? Like my wife usually does our grocery shopping for the most part. But if she comes home and she walks in the house with bags, I'll get upset. I'm like, hey, why didn't you call me and tell me you were pulling up so that I can come out there and help and get the groceries off you? Or if she does something like take the garbage out. She hadn't touched the garbage in 8 years of marriage. Like, but she knows if she does it, I will flip out all of our furniture. I'll throw it. But the reason for that though is like you said, it's just like no, let me do this. Let me take care of you, right? And there are certain things in me taking care of you that I just will not allow you to do it. It's going to upset me.
And to be fair, the women, I think our women see that, and I think it honors them and they honor us, but then also they hurt our feelings inadvertently because there's those times when they think they're going to do that. They see I'm tired. She sees I'm tired. I've had a long day. I've been on my feet all day, and I probably don't have 40 trips up the staircase left in my legs with no groceries, but there are groceries in the car, and I probably have 2 or 3 trips up the stairs before my legs are really tired, right? On my 5th trip up, she's genuinely honored, because I've pushed myself past my regular limits and I'm going out of my way, and she can see that and she honors that. And all we want as men, this is the thing. I'm going to give the ladies the cheat sheet. Say thank you. I'm telling you right now, say thank you. Say something nice. Men think compliments and thank you will last 10 years for us. Yes. I'm telling you right now. I remember I can count on probably 2 hands the amount of times I've gotten genuine compliments from strangers, and they're all memorable. You know what I mean? Like, they're all memorable. When people at work go out of their way, especially guys or ladies that are in the program where I work, and I'm doing work in the building, and they see me doing work, and they go up to me and say, thank you. I always see you doing something. Thank you. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do twice as good today now, just because you said that. Thank you. Like, my job is all my work for the rest of the day is twice the quality that it was, because I was more tired. I was in need of something like that. It's refreshing and it lifts us up. Women have the biggest muscle in the world right here. I'm telling you, that's the cheat sheet.
No, for sure. You are absolutely right, Josh. Yeah. You have no idea what your words can empower your man to do. You see these women out here that are, maybe it was like back in the day, like their husband will build them a house from the ground up. You imagine what she told that man in order for him to do that?
Oh yeah.
you imagine what she said to him for him to build a house from the ground up for her.
Oh yeah.
And built it for her. I mean, he customized that for her. Mm-hmm. Every room was put together with her in mind. Could you imagine what she said to him to get him to do that? I'm telling you, women, you have it. We will jump to the moon for you.
It was at least a thank you. It was at least a thank you.
At least the very minimum, she said thank you, and he was like, "What'd you say?" and now he's out here pouring concrete, laying foundation.
I think women forget the power of what we say for our husbands. Mm-hmm. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of women out there that are very upset with their husbands not doing things, or so they're nagging them constantly. Do that. Please do this. Please do that. My God, do this. Oh, I told you to pick this up. And they forget that it really matters, those little things that they do. If you compliment them and tell them how thankful you are, it's not just that one thing they're going to be doing next time. All of a sudden, they're going to want to do more. Mm-hmm. Like that's how you motivate men to get them to do things, is by complimenting, words of affirmation, a constant uplifting of your husband is the way that you almost make him a better man.
And then, and Amber, well, yes, absolutely. Make him a better man. Absolutely. But also then he'll begin to take initiative with things. All of a sudden, yes. you won't have to say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you forgot to stop by the store and get some more seasoning. I needed it. All of a sudden he'll say, hey, I'm going to stop by the store on the way home from work. I looked in the cabinet and saw we were out of some seasonings. I know you use them. I'm going to stop and I'm going to grab them. You're like, oh, I didn't even know we were out of those. But because of how you've been speaking to him and pouring into him and saying thank you and showing him that he's appreciated, that's the type of behaviors that you can get. And then he comes home with the seasoning and says, oh, by the way, I was out of the store. I bought you a bouquet of flowers as well. Or I bought you your favorite ice cream. I bought you your favorite candy. All of these types of things. That's how you get those behaviors. You can, women are gardeners as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Like this man.
And the other thing is, men can do this as well. But for women, we need to be more specific. We need to point out, hey, when you did this very specific thing, I really loved that. That made that helped me, or that made me think that I was important to you, or whatever. Those things, when we're specific with our words, with our wives, we need to be very particularized. Because if we say, oh, the house looks good, or I like your hair, like that's nice. Be specific. They want to know that. That's what when women talk to each other, they're very particularized. When they're giving, oh girl, I like that jacket. Oh my, the thing, and they start describing the detail they like. Why do they do that? Because that's how it's well received. They know that that's what they want to hear. So they say it that way. Of course, right? So for men, when we compliment each other, we go, man, great work, bro. I can rely on you. We leave it there because that's what we want. But for women, be more specific. We can do the same thing, right? And this is the flip side of that. If you're in a relationship with your wife or your husband, you're expecting that kind of honesty where they can point out things that you like, that you've told them. If you get in a habit where somebody is telling them all the time things that they enjoy, that you're doing right, that you're doing right, that you're doing right, when you do bring up the thing that they're actually failing at, it's not going to feel like that's all you see. That fixes a lot of problems. I'm telling you right now, men don't like feeling nitpicked, and neither do women. Nobody likes that feeling. We don't like that feeling, and it makes us feel targeted. It doesn't make us feel seen. And so when we come up with a laundry list of things that I need you to change right now for me, I need you to change these things. Yeah, that's fine, but you can't do it immediately. And also, is that all you see of me now? Because now I'm questioning whether or not I have that kind of value in your eyes, or whether or not there's actually anything about me that you like. What do you like? Is there something that is like, what's left over? You know what I mean? And we have those questions. We want to know those things. But then it gives you room to express honestly when somebody is at their failure.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's this idea. It's a concept called a compliment sandwich. That I think that men and women in relationships, particularly in marriage, do really well to apply. And it's essentially where the sandwich is made up of a compliment on top. That's a piece of bread. What you like to see change in the middle, and then another compliment on the bottom. That's the other piece of bread, right? And doing things that way will allow for whatever things you would like to see change to be received better. So start off with what you do like, right? Start the conversation with that. Maybe list 2 or 3 things about what you do like. And then politely ask for, hey, here's some things that I would like to see you do better or improve in. And then list those things. And then end on another 2 or 3 things that you like. I promise you, the things that you said you wanted to see be done better will be taken into consideration and will be put into practice. If you're, so long as 2 reasonable people are having these conversations, right? But that's a method that can be implemented between men and women to have tough conversations, to be able to say things that need to be said, even though they may be hard to hear, but still be received in a way that leads to productive results.
And it's also kind of a cure for that resentment that we get when somebody's not meeting that expectation, is to look for reasons why you can give them something that they do well. If you look for those things on purpose, it'll change the way you're looking at them as well, right? Because if you're looking at somebody to try to find reasons to correct them, you're going to see only the things they're wrong, right? And you're not even going to see or be able to acknowledge the things they're doing correctly. And this is something that'll be like a negative reinforcement for your ability to trust that person or even want to. And we'll talk ourselves out subconsciously. We'll talk ourselves out of trusting somebody or being trustworthy to somebody because of the fact that we have some unmet expectation. And then we latch onto that thing, right? And then it's simple things. It's always the small things. The same thing that you could say thank you for. Instead, you point out something that you should be saying. Like, this is something that I'm sure all the wives in the world know. Don't check the cups too closely when the men do the dishes. Just, you know what I mean? Like, if there's a problem, this is the thing. If you see somebody doing something that you ask them to do, and they're doing it, and they're doing it without you having to repeat yourself, they're doing it of their own volition, and they're doing it willfully and without a grudge, your reaction should not be immediate correction, right? Even if there's correction involved, fine, maybe there is. But it can't be the first approach, right? Because what we're doing then is punishing someone for a virtue. And that's a quick way to break someone's spirit, is to punish them when they're doing something that they should be honored. You should first honor, then correct. And if you don't do it in that order, not only are they not going to feel honored, you also are almost removing from your heart the desire to give them honor before correction, right? And this is not something that you do necessarily like with somebody who's just like a generic stranger or whatever. This is something that is genuinely reserved for those personal relationships where you're invested not only in where you're going to have what you're getting from this person, but also the growth that you're affording for this person, because you genuinely care for them and you want the good for them. You want them to be better. This is something that is very strange. A lot of times people have been duped in the modern world to think I love you means you're okay exactly the way you are. No, it means I accept you the way you are and I love you enough never to leave you there. That's what it means. And if you're ready to leave someone exactly the way that you found them, what you have is not love. What you have is a really good business relationship. So we have to be desiring for that person to be better. So I'm not saying don't correct your spouse. I'm saying do it with the fact that you're going to be with them in mind. Right? Like, expect that tomorrow you're still going to live with them. So how you go about having the conversation makes a good deal of difference. But again, remember you're going to live with them tomorrow. So you're neglecting the conversation's probably not going to help in long term. And so you have to weigh your options between short-term and long-term conflict in those ways. There's going to be conflict. You're having an ongoing negotiation with each other. Expect it. But expect that when you negotiate, it's not so that I win or that you win. It's so that we win.
Yes.
That's what you want. The wife shouldn't win. The husband shouldn't win. The covenant should win, right? So that's what you're aiming for, is to be in the future with each other that way. That's what you're trying to establish that trust for. And if your future is not together, right? If what you're aiming at is not to be together and become that one flesh, then this is one of the things that unfortunately a lot of people aren't being told prior to making their vows, is you need to be aware of the fact that this person is going to be showing you glimpses of themselves along the way. And if you think that you're marrying a perfect person, you're marrying a stranger.
Yes. And Josh, I would even say you're marrying a stranger regardless of what you think of them, because
yeah,
because the reality is that even for couples, that date for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years before they get married, which is that's crazy to me. But even couples that date that long before they get married, they're still shocked when those vows are made. And they learn things about this person that they have been dating for so long that they didn't know before. But I think part of the reason why you're learning things that you didn't know before is because the expectation for the relationship changed. Boyfriend and girlfriends don't sign up to do life with you. They don't. As boyfriend and girlfriend, I don't need to be all that concerned with your future well-being. Not really. I mean, I can be. You can. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you can be. But there's a different expectation level on a husband than a boyfriend as it relates to that type of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just plays a major part in how things kind of flush themselves out. And Josh, I know you touched on the idea of the two becoming one flesh. And I think sometimes when we get married in the ceremony, we think that that's the two becoming one flesh, right? Is that the ceremony and the consummation of the marriage. I would hearken that that's just the beginning of the two becoming one flesh, but that the two becoming one flesh is from here until the day you and I part in death.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the trust that grows and evolves and develops along the way in that process. Because it's an essential element to the two becoming one flesh. It's going to be really difficult to become one flesh with somebody you don't trust. It's going to be really difficult. And like I said earlier, it's not on the surface level trust. There's an intimacy and substance to the trust that's going to be necessary for this marriage to look the way God intended the day that the commitment was made.
That's right. And by the way, and this is a really great capstone for what we're talking about, the thing that God intended your marriage to look like is perfect fidelity and trust. That's actually the picture that God gave for marriage.
Yes.
Is the bride and the Christ. And Christ is exactly trustworthy. And what does he do? He honors the bride as if it was his own body, and even calls it such. Says, "You are my body," right? This is one of the most amazing revelations, and it's one that I wish that I had when I made vows. It's one that I learned after I had children, and there was a serious test in my marriage at the time, and my wife and I became very, very close to separating at the time. And so I am not saying any of these things about trust from the position of somebody who has no experience with being burned. I'm saying this as somebody who has had to painstakingly rebuild trust with someone, right? And so it is no joke to recognize that we need to trust one another. We need to be able to rely on one another. This is not an if, this is a must. This is absolutely necessary to be able to rely and believe one another when we say things, when we do things. If your word is not trustworthy, we have a problem, right? God says that his word is above his name. He is so trustworthy. God has no problems with this. And he expects the men. This is the duty of the men. Men, we're talking to you now. It is your duty to reflect the Christ in your marriage. Good luck, my friend. I understand how that sounds. Believe me, I understand how that sounds. You're the priest of your house, friend. And I know how that sounds. And you're going to have to look like Jesus, my friend. And I know how that sounds. You're going to have to be Christ to her. you're going to have to sacrifice yourself, not to her, for her. You're going to have to sacrifice yourself. If she's trying to make you sacrifice yourself to her, don't let her become a devil. But you need to be able to sacrifice yourself for her and for her stead and for her good. And one of the things that I wish I would understood that much earlier on in my own marriage is she is not mine. She is me. And I love her by loving me. And I love me
Yes.
by loving her. And that is
Yes.
the only way that this is going to make sense long term.
Yes. Yep. I agree with that, because I have to say, in my first marriage, he wouldn't take care of himself. And I tried to tell him, you taking care of yourself is a way to show me that you love me, because I love you. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of something I love. And that hurts me.
That's right. That's right. And it's reflective of God's heart as well. What you just said. That's actually correct. Is to say, when you don't love yourself, you're violating my love for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's not just that when you get into a relationship and you're trying to be selfless to your spouse, that you then become self-deprecating. You don't have to do that. Humility in your relationship is not loving yourself less. It's thinking of yourself less.
Mm-hmm.
And it's allowing that other person to occupy more and more of that space in your mind and in your heart. And it's going to guide the way that you live. It's going to guide the way that you view the world and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's meant to do that. That is not a bug. That is a feature. It is meant to do that. You are supposed to care what your wife thinks of you. You're supposed to care what your husband thinks of you. You're supposed to care how your wife listens to the way that you speak, what kind of jokes that you tell, what kind of movies that you indulge in, what kind of music you play for your children, right? Like, that does matter. Wives, it matters that your husband wants to see you dress beautifully, but modestly. It matters that what he wants to see is you honor your own body by having beautiful hair or a beautiful face, but not a fake one, right? Like, these are the kind of things that they actually do matter. And we've been tripped. We've been sold a bill of goods by society and thinking that if somebody cares enough to think that I should have to meet some desire of theirs, they're like, why are you harshing on my mellow, bro? Right? Like, no, I'm not violating you by expecting good from you.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a violation. If I expected you to do good for me while I did evil to you, then you could have a problem. But if my expectation of you is actually not just to benefit me, but is genuinely to see good come from you, then it is a very strange thing to react against. But we do get touchy about it. And so sometimes we need to know that. We need to hear that. Your wife is allowed to care how you look. Your wife is allowed to care how you sound. Your wife is allowed to care how you act in public. Your wife is allowed to care how you speak to the children. Your wife is allowed to care how you talk to your mother-in-law. Your wife is allowed to care how you treat the dishes, how you treat the pots and pans when she's away. Like, she's allowed to care about those things, right? She's allowed to care about how you act. You know why? Because she's one of the few people in the world that actually does allow for that. That's genuine concern. It's a good thing. Become the kind of person that your wife thinks that you could be. It'll be good for you. You know, become the kind of person that would be a stronghold for her. Be that trustworthy thing. Maybe she's crashing like the ocean and she's chaotic like a storm. Whatever. Maybe you're made of stone. Maybe you feel like you don't feel anything anymore. Maybe you're actually being equipped so that when your sensitivities awaken again, it'll be after she's blown the storm out. Maybe God knows what he's doing. Maybe your sensibility needs to be awakened, and those things that she says that finally make you cry, maybe that's a gift. Maybe you should listen. You know, maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe he's telling the truth, right?
Yeah. Not
just to harp on the men. Maybe the men are finally telling the truth. Maybe he's not being harsh. Maybe he's being honest and doesn't know how to use words well.
Yes.
Maybe. maybe you could give him that grace.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you could give her that grace, that she rambles a bit and she can't get to the point, but she has something to say, so shut up for a minute. Maybe you could give her that grace, and that's fine. You know, like, that's actually what you should be able to afford one another. But you can't do that if you can't trust the person to honor you and respect. Like, it's very difficult to extend those things without it being mutual, and somebody has to be brave. That's actually what's required. Somebody has to be brave. And if it's the person that's been burned that has to be brave, the person that's asking them to be brave needs to be there to support their bravery and honor it as well, and not simply take it for granted. Why are you still worried about that? Didn't we get over that? Look, especially if you're the reason for somebody's trauma, you don't get to make a timeline for their healing. You get to be part of their healing, or you get to be quiet. You need to be supporting. You need to be allowing for that space. Maybe somebody needs to get loud for a minute. Maybe you need to just take it. Maybe you don't need to take it anymore and you need to speak up. There's lots of scenarios in which this plays out, but all of them require both of you to be able to trust and be trusted. And it's something genuinely worth aiming for. And there's nothing in the world that'll replace it.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing more beautiful than being able to trust your spouse in such a way that you can literally be yourself. And not a lot of people have that. So if you have that with your spouse, be so grateful. I'm going to do a call to action to you. If you have that with your spouse, then once you're done listening to this, go to your spouse and tell them how grateful you are that they've allowed that space for you.
Amen.
And if you don't have that space with your spouse, communicate with your spouse so that way you can have this in the future. It does take time. And if the trust has been broken, don't think that's the end of your relationship. It's not. Let's say your spouse cheated on you and they come to you and they're very sorry and you feel like that trust is broken, because it is. If your spouse is willing to put in the work that's required to build that trust back up with you, I challenge you to allow that to occur, because there's going to be beauty beyond that brokenness.
Yeah. If, honestly, and I have very little shame left in my life because God's put me through the press enough times that I kind of gotten used to having to give a testimony about things like that. I have been in lots of relationships, but had only one marriage. And across every romantic relationship I've ever had, I've been cheated on. And that is a devastating thing to experience, let alone every time without exception. It's a very difficult thing to come to terms with. And yet, even in the moments where the person is not sorry and they are not yet lovely, they are not yet repentant. In fact, they are hateful and maybe even verbally abusive, maybe even physically abusive. You can still want the reconciliation and aim for unity and forgive and love this person. It is exceptional. It is exceptional difficulty. There's nothing easy or intuitive or even desirable immediately about that. Nothing. I tell you personally and honestly, there is nothing immediately desirable about it. And yet, roughly 10 years later, here I am, more married to my wife than I have ever been, and more grateful to God that I have not given up, that I was not cowardly and ran away. That was the thing that gave me the revelation that she's not mine, she's me, and you have not been a good priest of your household. And I bore the weight of that so far as I could. I began to pray for her out loud around the house. I began to walk away as she was being angry with me or getting an attitude, and prayed for her out loud, even while she's yelling. I allowed for those things to wash over. I did not fight. I did not bring things up. I did not play the blame game. I did not point fingers. I accepted and I moved forward, and I loved her, and I gave her the space to see how much I loved her, even when she was not being lovely. And now that she is thoroughly lovely, she believes me when I say, I love you, Emily. I love you. And she goes, oh, I know. And that, it's weird when somebody's, I know. Yeah, that's actually beautiful to hear.
It is.
If somebody, we say, I love you because we want to hear, I love you too. We
Yeah.
do. You know what I mean? We say, I always say it first. Why do I say it first?
Mhm.
I want to hear that you love me. I want you to tell me that. Right?
Yeah.
And you ask for it. You ask for it gingerly by saying it first. Right? But if somebody violated that expectation by saying, you know, I actually really believe you when you say that, that might mean just as much, if not more. You heard this person. They believe you. I trust when you say you love me, that you really,
Yeah.
really mean it. I've seen you prove that before. That's
Yeah.
irreplaceable, man. That's irreplaceable. Marriage is not meant to be temporary. And even the exception in scripture of infidelity was not an original exception. It is an extreme. And even then, God wants reconciliation. He's willing to take Israel back after the Old Testament. He says so in Romans through Paul. You know what I mean? So it's like God loves in a way that is uncanny. And when we get a hold of that and we start to implement some of that, you can really change the part of the world that you inhabit, like permanently change it.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let people and the bitterness that other people have experienced, or even your own resentment in moments where you're in pain, to deter you from believing that when God says you're able to love like I love, when you have my spirit and you're following after the Christ and you're doing these things, these are not sentiments, guys. These are real. The smallest things, the smallest rituals, like the way that you pray, it's going to change everything. Everything. It's really like it's real. And then building trust again and having it and knowing how fragile it is and holding it up anyway, like a trophy. Look at this thing. Look at it. It's beautiful. And you're not going to replace it with anything. And that's like, nobody can take the confidence that you have in somebody who's really, really proven that they're trustworthy. The only person that can steal that from you is that person with their actual betrayal. You know what I mean? That's why it's so precarious. That's why it's so fragile. That's why it's so honorable to see people who have gone through long stretches of marriage and don't have those kind of things happening. They didn't have the wound to heal from. They've just been happy. They've just been married. They've been in love. It's so rare now, you know? And I remember being a kid and recognizing that, you know, like divorce statistics were getting really, really ugly. They're not getting any better, you know? But what's embarrassing is the fact that the church is not an indictment on that.
Yeah.
The divorce rate is an indictment for the church at this point. And so we really need this. We really need to know that this is actually what it's about. You're not getting married to be happy. You're going to be happy that you got married, but you're not getting married to be happy. It's not, that's way too small of a goal. You need something way bigger than that. Happiness is short term, and it's temporary, and it's situational even. But your relationship is with your spouse. Your marriage is not a situation. It's a promise. You know, and that actually is built on trust. That's the rock that Christ says to build your house on.
Yeah.
That is the rock, is your ability to see that fortitude. God is trustworthy. He wants us to be like him. It's actually part of your purpose to be trustworthy, something that you were made for. And so it honors your spouse, it honors you, and it honors God. That's why good, godly marriages are actually glorifying to God personally, and he loves them. He invented it. He says it was part of the very good creation at the beginning. That's how good it is. And you know what? I feel like we're probably rounding off, so I'll just say this as something for a closing. The very first thing in the entire Bible that God said was not good was not the fall. It was not sin. It was that man was alone. That was the first thing God Almighty said was not good. And so he did something about it. And he took from Adam a wife, a helpmate, ezer. This is a crazy, crazy word. If you got any word nerds listening, check out the word ezer in Hebrew there in Genesis and see what it means that a woman is a helpmeet. This is a remarkable word. It's a remarkable word. It's a remarkable privilege. Women are the pinnacle of creation, and we should honor them. And as a man, I know that you had mentioned this in the beginning, that you were happy to have men speak about marriage. Women are a gift. They are an unmatchable gift that God gave man, because it was not good for us to be alone. That's my heart for this. You know what I mean? So I just want to, if nobody takes anything else away from this, it is that trust is part of your purpose. It's actually part of why you were made at all. Is to trust and be trusted. It's to love and be loved. That's actually, we use those phrases kind of like a platitude because it sounds cool, but really that's actually what you're made for. You weren't made as a reproduction machine,
Yeah.
Like, you were actually made to love and to be loved and to trust and to be trusted. Amen and amen.
I really appreciate you guys being on. Unfortunately, Jaylen had to get off a little early. He had time restraints, but is there anything that you want to say before we close out?
First and foremost, thank you again for having us on here and having the Cosmic Corner guys come on your podcast. We appreciate that. And I genuinely want to do what I can to help support your channel and cross-pollinate. So I'll be telling people about this stream and sharing it and stuff. If people want more of me and Jaylen, you can go to Faith Unaltered on YouTube and check out our channel. Go to the playlist tab and click on Cosmic Corner, or just search Cosmic Corner in the search tab on YouTube, and our playlist should be the first thing that comes up. I am exceedingly glad that Jaylen got to pop in for this and was part of it, because and I knew beforehand. I'm not a prophet, but I did know beforehand that he was going to be exceedingly wise. So there it is. You got our very own Gandalf. But I was very happy that he was able to come on here, and he's definitely a blessing and very edifying to me. And so I'm glad that he was here. I am super pleased with how this conversation went, and I hope that it's a blessing to people, genuinely. But it's something that is near and dear to my heart personally, and something that I take very seriously, because I see and have experienced the cost of trust, and understand how difficult and costly it is to rebuild trust. And so it is not something to be taken for granted. And so when people trust me, and even as a friend, just to give it kind of another ground floor, even as a friend, when somebody reaches out and tells me something personally about themselves, whether gratifying and celebration worthy or shameful and embarrassing, I always tell them, I don't take for granted that you trust me right now. Thank you. Because I know and understand what that means. And people know and understand when you say that to them, what it is that you mean. And it's something that is genuinely complimentary to that person. I hear what you're saying, and I know that you wouldn't say this, and I will not repeat it. You can trust me. And I don't take for granted that you trust me. It is deeply complimentary to me that you trust me with this. I don't take that for granted. So thank you. Right?
Yeah.
That means a lot to that person, because you recognize that costliness. You're giving them that honor back. And it's not you being arrogant by saying, yeah, you trust me, I'm so trustworthy. Like, it's actually,
no.
I see what you're doing. You're so brave. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that people need to speak their minds a little bit more. This is just what that reminded me of, when an example is when you see someone out and about and you can tell they put effort into what they're wearing, and you think they look really good, or what have you, but you don't say it. Say those things more. You're not going to get much time on this earth. Say those things. It matters. and be very upfront with your spouse too. When they allow you the space to be yourself, thank them for it. Because trust is so important, and we need to recognize how much it means to us and be thankful for it. So make sure you thank your spouse today for that space. If anybody has any questions about loving your spouse or trusting, if trust has been broken and you don't know how to rebuild it, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I could find good resources or give you some good sound advice. Please reach out at boundbygrace@gmail.com. And I'm going to have Josh and Jaylen's links in the description of this video and the description of audios if you guys want to reach out or support their pages as well. So again, Josh, thank you so much for being on, and thank you to our listeners. I hope you found this helpful, and you guys have a wonderful day.